So that's just going to be proof that I am not going to edit this video. I have decided for today not to read live. One thing, it's a beautiful day outside. I do not want to be cooped up in the room. I waited a little long, so the lighting is pretty bad in there. And this chosen setting is kind of far. I just don't know what the reception is going to be like, so I'm just recording it. With the stipulation that I do very minimal editing. So, well, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to proceed. We are on chapter 7 of Keepers of Fire. I like reading outside. And last time, we met Dethar's master, Glandil the demon, and we left the Morren sisters in chapter 5. We met Dethar's demon master in chapter 6. Chapter 5, we left the Morren sisters with Jero and Nias, the twins. They're very sick, caused by Dethar, of course, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They found some sort of cure, and anyway, Mathias Grimnor has gone off to pursue the ingredients for the remedy, and we actually now get his first point of view chapter here in chapter 7. So, chapter 7, In the Place of a Father. The campfire burned brightly, warming Mathias as he sat beside it with his arms wrapped around his knees. His loyal stallion, Ryan, was tethered to a nearby tree. Silent and thoughtful, Mathias gazed at the flames, watching the light and shadows. After several days of hard riding, there was no doubt he was tired, but the young man couldn't sleep. Perhaps it was being connected to the Morrens once again that brought his wakefulness, stirring up memories and moments from years before and disturbing his rest. Perhaps it was the urgent nature of his mission that kept him alert. Elise and all the others were depending on him to bring the medicine in time, and Mathias would never feel at peace until he'd done so. Not like he'd been at peace before. The affair with Wenlain had destroyed his life, but Mathias had sworn to rebuild it again. His success at Blakenstell had convinced him that he could. He'd broken the Senate's heart, ruined his reputation, and lost the faith of everyone. Pathetic as he appeared, however, Mathias knew there was more to it than that. The child that he'd claimed as his own, he knew it wasn't. It had been many years ago, but Mathias would never forget. A girl had come to work in his father's house. She was meek and beautiful, and her name was Wenlain. She arrived shortly after the time that Alimera had fallen ill. Mathias soon noticed how much his father watched the girl. She was 16, no older than himself at the time, and Mathias began to worry that Sir Grimnor paid too much attention to her. Time passed, and his mother continued to battle her sickness. One day, nearly a month after Wenlain's arrival, Mathias found his father standing in the shadows, Wenlain trapped with her back to the wall. Heart pounding, Mathias kept hidden, watching tensely. Reaching up, Sir Grimnor... That's Heathcliff, I apologize. Reaching up, Sir Grimnor tugged the ribbon from the girl's hair, and she lowered her head quickly as the copper mane flowed free. For a moment longer, they lingered, until Sir Grimnor whispered something and Wenlain hurried away. Horror welled up inside Mathias when he saw the sickening smile on the knight's face. Mother was ill. How could Sir Grimnor forget her so swiftly? Mathias moved into the light then, and Sir Grimnor froze, realizing what his son had just witnessed. The look in Mathias's eyes said everything. Sir Grimnor tried to look away, but in the end was forced to return the iron gaze. Why? Mathias asked simply. Sighing, Sir Grimnor turned to the side. It was nothing, Mathias. Don't tell me that, Mathias snapped. It wasn't nothing. Don't say it was nothing. How could you do this? Think of Mother. Nothing is wrong, Mathias. Be silent. Sir Grimnor spoke angrily. Turning on his heel, he stormed away. Stunned, Mathias spun around and hurried down the hall, confused, angry, needing to be alone, needing to think. Mathias! He didn't see Loma when she called to him. His strides became faster until he was all but running to his chamber. Slamming the door behind him, he fell against it, pulling at his hair in frustration, deep despair creeping over him. A knock echoed in his ear. Mathias, Loma's voice asked, are you all right? May I see you? Straightening, Mathias deliberated, passing a hand over his face and glancing over his shoulder. He certainly couldn't tell her. Hello? Allergies. Drawing a deep breath, Mathias turned and opened the door. Loma stood before him, her 12-year-old face lined with concern. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing, come in, Mathias said, beckoning and closing the door after her. What is it, really? Loma asked, scooting up onto his bed and looking at him. Biting his lip, Mathias thought quickly. Father and I had an argument, that's all. An argument? Loma's eyes grew wide. Was it bad? Rather harsh, I'm afraid, and it didn't end well. We'll get it sorted out, though, I'm sure. What was it about? Loma asked. I'd rather not say. It will only make it worse. Mathias sighed. Sympathetic, Loma got up and gave him a hug. You'll solve it, Mathias, don't worry. Smiling, Mathias hugged her back. If only he could be so sure. That was the first encounter Mathias had had with the affair. Time and again, he would question Sir Grimnor about it, but each time his father refused to listen, waving him away and insisting that there was nothing to worry about. Occasionally, Sir Grimnor would even grow angry with Mathias's interrogations. This always led to a loud argument, which neither of them wanted, and so eventually Mathias ceased with the questions and simply watched them carefully. Day in and day out, he kept a close eye, marking each move his father made, watching in quiet fury as his father glanced up whenever Wynlane entered the room. He never caught them alone again, but by the way his father behaved, Mathias wondered. Unexpectedly, however, Wynlane suddenly disappeared. Her routine chores were assigned to a different maid, and Mathias was left in utter perplexity as the workings of the house continued without her. No one could tell him where she went, including his father, though Mathias had his doubts. Eventually, however, as the days turned into weeks and Wynlane didn't return, Mathias began to hope they'd seen the last of her, and that his father had changed, perhaps sending her away to avoid temptation. It certainly seemed that he had, for he suddenly chained himself to his wife's bedside and was hardly seen by his children before dinner. This, Mathias was certain, was a sign of repentance. As a year disappeared and Alamira continued to struggle, Mathias began preparing for Blakenstell at the same time he fell in love with Aseneth. They wanted to marry, and planned on doing so when he returned. 4 years would be a long time to wait, but wait they would. One day, when Mathias returned from an afternoon with Aseneth, he found his mother and Elibeth walking carefully along the hall, his mother supported on one side by the healer. It had been a long illness, but she was on the mend. Waving as he approached, he smiled affectionately. Venturing out of the bedroom again? He asked. Nodding politely, he added, Good afternoon, Elibeth. His mother smiled, taking the arm that he had extended for support and leaving Elibeth to follow. After being stuck in that room for so long, is it any wonder? Mathias laughed. He was pleased that she was recovering. It had been a difficult time without her spark, and now, at last, she was returning to her ways. At the end of the hall was a spiral staircase, leading up and down. As they approached, Sir Grimnor appeared, coming upwards. He smiled warmly at his wife and went to take her hand. You are looking lovely, my dear, he said. Hardly, I'm sure, Alamira replied, returning the smile nevertheless. A walk in the garden might do me some good. Sir Grimnor hesitated. Are you certain you should be going outdoors so soon? He glanced at Mathias for aid. Perhaps you should wait a few more days. Elibeth? I could bring the flowers up to you, if you'd like, Mathias offered, glad to see his father so concerned. It had been over a year since Wynlane had left, and his father hadn't mentioned her once. Mathias had kept the matter to himself, speaking not a word to his mother or sister. There was no need, he reasoned, to stab wounds with buried daggers. Nonsense, Alamira replied, flicking a hand at her son and I cannot read. This is why I do it live. Nonsense, Alamira replied, flicking a hand at her son dismissively. The fresh air is calling to me. I've been out on the balcony for some time now anyway. I do believe a short walk would do no harm, Elibeth agreed. Nodding, Sir Grimnor smiled. Very well, then let us... He never finished his sentence. At that moment, Wynlane appeared from the upper floor, coming down the spiral staircase. She froze when she saw the noble family. Sir Grimnor's eyes widened, and Mathias drew in his breath. A child, not quite 6 months, was in her arms. Loose curls grew above his face, which was happy and bright. His eyes were dark, like his hair. He was a handsome little boy, and Mathias could not bring himself to admire him. Sir Grimnor's face went white, and he glanced at everyone in the awkward gathering. Lady Alamira stared at the child. She stared at her husband, and then stared at the boy. She began trembling. Only a glance, and she knew. A wounded cry escaped her lips. Gwynlaine turned and fled back up the stairs with the baby. Lady Alamira tore herself from her husband's embrace. "How could you?" she cried. "Rilius! Husband! How could you betray me?" Sir Grimnor looked utterly shocked. He did not know what to say. Pain burned in his eyes as he watched his wife. "My lady," Elibeth breathed, horrified, frozen with indecision and disbelief. Mathias' hands clenched into fists as rage burned up inside him. Was this his father? So he hadn't sent Gwynlaine away or let her go free. Disgust curled Mathias' lip as he glowered darkly at Sir Grimnor. Beside herself, Lady Alamira just stood there, bent over, unsure of what to do. Mathias couldn't let her feel such pain. She was just recovering. If she fell prey to another weakness, she would perish. Only one option lay before him, and he took it. "The child is mine." Sir Grimnor looked up at his son, bewildered. Lady Alamira turned to Mathias, face confused. Mathias' voice quivered as he spoke. "The child is mine," he repeated, and lowered his head. "I am the father." Elibeth choked in astonishment. At that moment, Mathias knew he had lost everything. No one would forgive him for this. A sentence would leave him in grief. The reputation he had vanished. His mother struggled to regain her voice. "You're the father." She glanced at Sir Grimnor, and then back at her son. "I am," Mathias said. Sir Grimnor closed his eyes. Mathias could see him struggling against words. "I'm sorry, father. I have disgraced myself. Take no part in it." It was a code. Sir Grimnor opened his eyes. Turning, he left without a word, disappearing down the hall. Lady Alamira hardly noticed that he had gone. "You have betrayed everything we've taught you." Gotta redo that. "You have betrayed everything we've taught you." Her voice was hard, angry. Better than sadness, Mathias told himself. His mother bit her lip. Elibeth placed a supportive hand on her shoulder, but Alamira slapped it away. Stern, stubborn, like her old self. "Mathias, you knew better. The oaths! Mathias, you will face the consequences. You will care for this woman and your son. You will marry her. You will marry her at once." Mathias knew that he couldn't, and suspected his mother didn't mean it. "I will not marry her, mother. I have already spoken with her. She has no interest in marriage." It was excuse enough, though an obvious lie. Mathias could never marry another besides the Seneth, and then Gwynlaine needed to be sent away, far from Sir Grimnor's grasp. Lady Alamira was seething. "You will take care of her," she said, and stormed down the hall, back to her room. Disgusted, Elibeth's lip curled. "I never thought this of you, Master Mathias. You, of all people. You won't live this one down." Spitting on her heel, Elibeth left him alone. Mathias sank to the floor, all strength gone as the full realization settled in. "Aseneth, forgive me," Mathias breathed. How was he to explain? How could he ask her to bear such a secret? I can't demand that of her, Mathias thought. I can't ask her to hide it. What of her sisters? Wrapping his arms around his knees, Mathias rocked slowly back and forth, weeping softly. Mother mustn't die. I can't let her die. Not when I can stop it. Aseneth, forgive me. Swallowing hard, Mathias forced himself upon his feet. Down the hall, Mathias saw his father steady, and his eyes narrowed. By heaven, I'll deal with you, he growled. Marching straight away, Mathias burst inside, slamming the door loudly, catching Sir Grimnor's attention. Mathias' eyes burned as he glared at his father, standing quietly beside the window. You monster. Sir Grimnor threw up his hands. Why did you do it? His voice sounded tired, weak. He sank into a chair. You hid her! Mathias spat with revulsion. You actually hid her! You couldn't just stop! Father, why? Mathias, you have overstepped your place, Sir Grimnor said roughly, trying to be angry. You will not uphold this lie. You have no reason or right. It is not your burden to carry. Rubbish! I did it from my mother, your wife! Mathias fought to keep his voice down. I've given up everything for this. I cannot tell anyone the truth. You weren't even able to sacrifice your passion, you villain! How badly he wanted to hit him. My son, I beg you, do not do this! Sir Grimnor left his chair and fell to his knees, face turning desperate, tears of sorrow pouring down his face. You are correct in every way. I am a villain, worthless in this wretched world. Everyone will hate you because of this. I have made you the victim of my sin, and I cannot allow you to live like this. Please let me take the blame that is rightfully mine. Mathias looked down at his father, and tears flowed down his own cheeks. I loved you. You were my father. I am not worthy to be your father. Let me right the wrong that I have done. Renounce what you have just told your mother. Let me confess the truth. You will not. Mathias' voice was firm. This is not done for you. Mother will die tonight if she discovers the truth. You will not tell her a thing. If there is any honor left in you, if you still love your wife, if you have any care for me or Loma, you will keep silent. Promise me that you will never speak a word. Swear it. Sir Grimnor seemed to have lost his strength. Remorse for his actions overpowered him, and they fell forward onto his hands, bending lower to the floor. Swear it! I swear. Sir Grimnor's voice was small. Oh, son. Where has she been all this time? Gone. Sir Grimnor sighed. Ran away, and I do not blame her. Came back because she couldn't support the boy. A sob escaped him. Mathias knelt down beside him. He could speak no longer. His throat was tight with a cry that longed to be heard. Deliberating between hate and love, the son placed a hand on his father's shoulder. Sir Grimnor rose up, and the two men pulled one another into a tragic embrace. Life had changed forever, not for the better. They would be forced to live with Sir Grimnor's disgrace. Elabeth had made short work of whatever chance there had been of secrecy, though Sir Grimnor had punished her. It was 2 years at least before he permitted her near the house again, summoning physicians for Alamira from elsewhere. It hadn't taken Loma long to realize the truth, to discover the truth. She was as shrewd as a mind reader. Mathias had longed to tell Aseneth, but her bond with her sisters was so strong, Mathias knew she wouldn't be able to keep the secret, nor would he force her. To ask her to marry a man whom everyone believed was worthless and wicked would be to compel her to sacrifice her own good name, and Mathias wouldn't do that. Loma despised the hateful words she heard from the villagers, but how could she nobly defend him? He had claimed the child as his own, and Aseneth's cries of sorrow had broken his heart. Mathias couldn't send Winlane back to her family disgraced. Wrenching control of the situation from his father's craven hands, Mathias set her up in the little home in the Amorian countryside, near enough to Blakenstell to let him visit from time to time, and insisted that Sir Grimnor provide her with a quarterly allowance. Mathias sent the money to her himself, refusing to let his father know her location. Mathias could remember it very well, and each recollection brought fresh pain. Fortunately, now that Winlane had been married, Mathias had no need to worry about or see her again. She had recently been wedded to a good farmer, whom she had met and grown to love. The man had sworn never to breathe a word of the truth behind the child. He was the only one, other than Loma or Winlane, who knew who the father really was. Mathias was thankful he wouldn't have to see her again. Neither he nor Winlane had enjoyed their reunions, and Mathias couldn't be sure whether or not she was at fault. He had no way to free himself of the slander, however, not without hurting his mother. Mathias had carried the secret for long years, and still the memory stung. He loved Aseneth no less now than he had before, but she was lost to him. She seems happy enough, anyway, Mathias thought, stirring the embers with a stick. Who knows if she'll ever know the truth. And that's the end of that chapter. Thank you for watching, and tune in next week for Dethar's return to Chestel. Actually, I also just wanted to add just a little bit of trivia. That sentence, when Mathias says, claims to be the father, that part where he says, the child is mine. I remember remember exactly where I was in the house when I was writing that. And to my surprise, because I've been looking forward to writing it at the time, and I was, it's like, because, the tragic moments, you're always looking forward to writing those. And when it came to write those words, I sat there forever because I just couldn't write them anyway. That was just one of the grand memories of the writing of Keepers of Fire, is that it took me several moments to finally, I don't know what you call it, muster the courage. I don't know, because of what I knew it was going to do to Mathias's life. But eventually, I wrote them, and the story continued, and made Mathias as miserable as possible.